Malikia, and you are watching What Happened on the Soaps. This is Days of Our Lives edition. Today is Thursday, September, November the 16th, 2023. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give it a 7. It was solid, but these are not my favorite storylines, but I know, like some of you, these are like 10s for you. All right, let's go ahead and get into this. We start off by seeing Chad and Stephanie. Let's go ahead and do their storyline. So we should see Chad and Stephanie. They are at the pub. They're having breakfast, but Stephanie's not really eating hers. And Chad is like, "Why are you not eating?" She said her eggs are cold. He was like, "Well, they could warm them up for you, like." And she said, "No, I'm not really hungry." And you could tell she's upset still with Chad. So he starts reading the paper and he says, "Do you see this crap that Everett wrote?" The new editor in chief, like, what idiot would think that making Leo into so like a beloved character would make sense? And she said, "Well, actually, I'm the idiot because remember, Everett went to Stephanie and she told him, well, Lady Whistleblower had a lot of fans, so you want to be able to keep those fans, so you have to turn Leo into someone who did all of this because he's just in love." And so Chad was like, "You did this?" And she was like, "Yes. Um, Everett and I are working together. He needed my help on the paper. And that's what we came up with to, try to keep Lady Whistleblower's fans still fans because the paper is going through a lot of financial hardship, right? And Lady Whistleblower was a moneymaker for the paper." So then she tells Chad, because she was like, "It doesn't matter who wrote that. You just don't like that Everett did it because you're jealous." And he said it, "Yeah, and you like that, right? You like me being jealous." And she was like, "Excuse me?" He was like, "Because you want me to be jealous and everything, so it strokes your ego, it makes you feel better about it." And she was like, "No, what I want is somebody who wants me." He was just saying it makes you feel better because I don't want to get married and everything. And she was like, "Well, no, what I want is someone who wants me, who sees a future with me, and who loves me." And he says, "I feel all of those things for you. I just don't want to get married right now." And everything. And she was like, "You know what, Chad?" She doesn't want to argue with him. And he doesn't either. Chad ends up leaving. Bottom line is he ends up leaving because she doesn't want. Stephanie always does this. Like, she gets with Chad, or she'll get with a guy, and then she'll still have even if they're uncomfortable. Like, I don't feel bad for Chad about this because these are the same things that Alex had said, and you didn't stop talking to Stephanie about it. But now every time Stephanie is with someone else, Chad is jealous about it. But I also think that on some regard, Stephanie does kind of like doing this to people. I don't know. Child, let's move on. So then we see that after Stephanie talks to Chad, Everett comes through. Now, Everett had been at the paper earlier with Xander. And Xander was on the phone with Sarah because, they're doing a whole custody battle. And he called to ask, "How is Maggie?" And she was like, "Maggie is good." And she said, "Well, why are you really calling me?" And he was like, "Well, I know we had to postpone custody yesterday because of Maggie. So I was just, checking." And she says, "Well, that the anniversary was yesterday, so she's much better now." I said, "Then y'all really could have had your court case, but okay, I'll rock with you." Um, and she said, "So why are you really calling me?" And he was like, "I was really just checking." And she said, "So are you still gonna go through with your plans to have Eric badmouth me?" And he said, "Sarah, I want to do co-parenting with you." And she said, "I don't want you a part of my life or my child's life." And he said, "Well, then we're going to have to go to court." And so she said, "All right, then so be it." And so she gets off the phone with him, and Everett and Xander talk, right? And they talk about, the paper and how he did a good job on the whole Leo story. He didn't know he was going to romanticize it, but he liked the story, and, it did well. It's doing well for the paper. And Everett did tell Xander that if I had known that like y'all were in financial trouble, I might not have accepted this job. But I was, he was desperate for money, so he did what he had to do. And so then we see that Everett and Xander Everett ends up leaving, and Chad comes in because he wants to speak to Xander, and he tells Xander he wants to buy the paper from him. And he said, "What?" And he said, "Yes, I want to buy the paper from you." And he makes an excuse about, you know, this paper meant a lot to Jack and Jennifer and Abby, and meant a lot to Abigail as well. And it would have been part of his children's legacy. So he wants to buy Xander's half of the paper. And Xander sees right through this. He says, "Sir, do you want to buy my half of the paper, or do you or are you upset because the new editor in chief is your ex's boyfriend?" He said, "Because if I sell my half of the paper, I need to know that um, the new editor in chief will be taken care of." And he says, "When did you start caring about people?" He said, "Well, also, he's in a custody battle. So, it looks good for him to have income and a steady form flow of income and a job. And this paper does that for him. Plus, he knows Chad is not trying to buy the paper for the right reason. And so he's not going to sell. He's not going to sell the paper to Chad." And so then after that, we hear Chad on the phone, and Chad is talking to somebody, and he says, "Yeah, I know you didn't expect to hear from me, but I need your help about something." I said, "Lord, what are y'all about to do?" So moving from that, we see that after Everett leaves the paper, he actually goes and he sees Stephanie at the pub, and he thanks her for the help. He said that it did really well with the paper and everything. The story did really well, and she's, of course, she's happy about that. And that's another thing too. Chad was like, "You didn't have to work with Everett," and she said, "You wanted me to pass up what could potentially be a lucrative offer just because Everett and I used to date." I mean, I guess so. That's what he said. But anyways, she's just like, she sees Everett and she congratulates him on the success of his article and everything. And then she tells him that somebody didn't like it, and he said, "What idiot wouldn't like this paper?" And she said, "Let's not call people idiots, because Chad just said that about her." So she was like, and let's not name call, and she's not gonna get into it. He said, "Let me guess, it was Chad. Chad doesn't like that you're working with me and everything." And she was like, "Well, pretty much no, he doesn't like that." And so at this point they're talking and really enjoying each other's company, and Alex comes in. Now Alex had been with Teresa earlier, and he had asked her, did she still want to do Bella for him, and of course she said yes. And they got this little tension going on with the two of them, because I guess they're trying to keep it real professional. But yeah, so he left to do all the paperwork so that they can resurrect Bella, and Teresa can run the paper that magazine. So anyways, he ends up coming to the pub, and he sees Stephanie, and he was like, "Man, you're so busy now." No, we're both so busy now. It feels like I never seen you. And she said, "No, no, that's because you are running the world." And so she introduces him to Everett, and Everett talks about Teresa because she mentions Teresa to Alex. And so Alex was like, "How does he know that Teresa is your cousin?" And she tells him, about, she used to date Everett. And he said, "Oh, this is the guy who ghosted you." And so they start talking, and Alex is cool. I was like, "Oh, so Alex doesn't want Stephanie anymore." That's what I got out of this. I said, "Oh, he's over her." Because he didn't seem threatened, or he just seemed like he was just friends with Stephanie. But he did tell Everett, "Be careful, because I know from personal experience, Alex doesn't, I mean, Chad does not like Stephanie communicating with her exes." And so that was that on that. And so Everett was like, "Ex?" And she tells him that she used to date Alex before she got with Chad. And he was like, "Girl, don't take this the wrong way, but you get around." I said, "Well, how's she supposed to take that?" I don't know, child. I'll be like, "Well, what you trying to say?" But anyways, so that's it with pretty much them. Him and Stephanie are just he. You could tell Everett wants to be more than friends, and everything to Stephanie. But I don't know, child. We'll have to look and see. Anyway, so then we go over here to Constantine. So Constantine runs into John, not John, excuse me. He runs into Steve in the town square, and Steve tells him, there's a sale at Saxton's, and he says, "Oh, thank you for that information. I'll be sure to check it out." And Steve said, "Well, wouldn't you already know that?" And Constantine was like, "What you talking about, Willis?" And he says, "Because like that lace that you bought Maggie that you said was from Greece was I saw the receipt on that." So Constantine covers it up and says, "Well, she was just having such a hard time with Victor that I just wanted to give her something nice." And he said, "So you lied to her?" And he was like, "Well, I just wanted to give her something nice to help her get over her rough day that she was having with Victor. So I told a little white lie, but that's all of the lie that he's really told and everything." And so Steve is pretty much like, "I got my eyes on you. I'm gonna be watching you and everything." Because he's not buying Constantine's story and he doesn't want to see Maggie hurt. And of course, Constantine is like, "Oh, I don't want her hurt either. And that's why I did that because she was having such a rough day, right?" So then we see that Steve goes over to John and he tells John, because John is putting up his family tree and everything. I still like that was a really nice gift. But he's putting up his family tree from their wedding anniversary. And Steve is like, "That was a really nice gift." And then he tells them, "But I'm here because of Constantine," and he starts explaining like what happened with Constantine and why he doesn't trust him. And so John is like, "Well, maybe Kayla is right because Kayla did say it told Steve as well. Well, maybe Constantine just saw Maggie was having a hard time and that's why he bought the lace tablecloth for her and lied about why he did it." And but Steve is just like, "But I'm just not like there's something about him I don't trust." And all of his stories about Victor giving him the money to start his restaurant, that's all based on what Constantine said. We don't have Victor's side of the story. And so John says, he's willing to give Constantine the benefit of the doubt, but he also knows that if Steve's not trusting him, he trusts his partner. So let's see where that goes, like what's happening with that. And so he says, "Maybe we can go to Greece because you said you made a lot of contacts with them and we can find out more information about Victor's relationship with Constantine and also more information about Constantine." And he said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that sounds like a good plan." So then we go over here and we see Maggie talking to Sarah. And so Maggie hears Sarah's conversation with Xander, and she tells Sarah that, you know, pretty much Maggie said, "Girl, if you had just listened to me and tried to co-parent with Xander, you wouldn't be stressed out like this." And Sarah's like, "Mama, I don't want to hear this right now." And she said, "I would still be going through this custody battle whether I took your advice about Xander or not. So I don't want to hear, I don't want to hear that right now, Mama." I'm stressed, and that's the last thing I want to talk about. How I don't take your advice, and now my life choices are this. But anyways, so Maggie continued to talk to Sarah, and she was talking about Constantine, and she started talking about Christmas, and Sarah was like, "You think Constantine is still going to be here at Christmas?" And Maggie was like, "Well, I don't know, but she wants to get him a little gift or whatever." Because Sarah had asked her because she watched the baby while she went to work. And Maggie was like, well, she had planned on going shopping, but she would love to watch the baby and everything. And so Sarah was like, "Okay." But then Sarah said, "Well, Mom, you seem to be getting really close to Constantine, and it's very soon after Victor's passing. And, you know, what's going on between you two?" And she says, "Nothing. I just really enjoy his company. He's been comfort to me with this whole thing going on with Victor. He's been a real comfort to me." And so Sarah is just like, "I don't know." So at this point, we see that Constantine is listening in. He was coming back because he had brought Maggie some treats from Sweet Bits. And when he was coming in, he hears Sarah and Maggie's conversation. So then he's like, "Ugh." And he leaves, right? But Sarah continues to talk to Maggie about, maybe not trusting Constantine so easily the way she is. And Maggie said, "Mind your business," and that is exactly what she said. Y'all know, normally I'm like, "That's not what she said," but that's what I heard. No, that's what she said. She was like, "Mind your business. This ain't got nothing to do with you." I said, "Now, Maggie." Now you can't. On one hand, you're telling Sarah to mind her business, but you're always giving Sarah advice, and that's what Sarah told her. And so I said, both of y'all just mind your own business, then, y'all. That's the best option I see. So they said, yeah, you're right. That's what we're gonna do. So they both agree that, Maggie has her eyes wide open when it comes to Constantine, but Victor trusted him and she thinks he's a great man. So, it is what it is. And I said, well, and Sarah, you over here doing a whole custody battle with Xander. So you're anyways, let's move on. So now remember, Maggie told Sarah she would watch the babies, and so that's what they do. So then we see Sarah goes to work, and when she goes to work, Xander comes up and she was like, "What are you doing here?" And he tells her that, he wants to talk to her about everything they got going on. Because Sarah had told Xander, she said, Eric's probably gonna do more damage to you trying to put him on the stand than me, because he's gonna go rogue or whatever. Anyways, that's it with them, y'all. So we see that after Constantine listened into what Sarah had to say, he went over there to see Teresa, and Teresa's like, "What are you doing here?" Because he went to Alex's place to see her. He was like, "I waited for Alex to leave, and then I wanted to see you." And he tells her that he's going to expose her to Alex if she doesn't help him. And she was like, "Why would you do that? Because you would lose your money." He said, "I would have Maggie's money." And I said, "Baby, if you think Teresa wouldn't expose you for being a creep to Maggie, if you expose her to Alex, you're like, what are we talking about here?" And so she tells him that she asks him to leave Maggie alone. She's like, "Maggie was good to me when I had a drug problem, and she's a good person." And he says, "I'm not gonna hurt her. He just wants her money." I said, "Well, that would hurt her because she like you, she thinks you like her, and you're really just after her money." But anyways, he tells Teresa that he needs her help, and she's made this bed, so she needs to lie in it. And she was like, "Okay, fine. What do you want me to do?" So the next thing we know, Constantine goes back to the house, and Sarah is gone now because she went to work, and he's talking to Maggie. And everything, and he has flowers. And Maggie tells him, "Oh, thank you for the flowers, Constantine. But I was talking to Sarah, and I think you're being too generous. I can't accept." And he says, "Well, Maggie, the flowers aren't for you, they're for Victor." And she was like, "What?" And he says, "You were so busy yesterday that you didn't really get to visit Victor and everything. So I thought maybe you would want to." And she was like, "Oh, that's a lovely gift, but and a lovely thought, but I have to watch my grandbaby." He said, "Oh, I can do it." I said, "Why is everybody just leaving this grandbaby around this man?" Because Sarah, you was talking about don't trust Constantine, but you left your baby with that man too. I'm just saying, people just be like, okay. Anyways, so he says, "So you can go and I'll watch the baby. It will be the just fine, right, Victoria?" I said, "What you about to do, Constantine?" And so Maggie leaves and everything, and then Teresa shows up and she says, "I don't like this plan. I don't think this is a good idea." He said, "Well, I don't really care what you think. Take this baby." And I said, "Take the baby where?" I don't know, child. But that was it. That was all that happened on um the Days of Our Lives today. I was about to say The Bold and the Beautiful. I don't know. This wasn't. It, I'm maybe I don't like the maybe I don't like this episode because I don't like what Constantine is doing, and that they lied to Alex about him being Victor's child and all that. I don't like that part because y'all know I do like Alex, but I don't know. Y'all tell me what you think in the comments, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the final episode of the week of What Happened on the Soaps, Days of Our Lives edition. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.